Hi, Taurus Sun and Rising. Welcome to your August 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. So, as the month of August begins, we have the transit of Mars in Virgo, which has just begun at the end of July. And so it is going to play out throughout the month of August. In Virgo, this is a fellow Earth sign, so it forms a trine to your Sun or Ascendant. And it's coming from the fifth house. The fifth house is the house of pleasure. It's the house of fun and games. So, speaking of Mars and speaking of games, if you're somebody who is into sports, things could start to heat up for you athletically, competitively. But it's going to be for kind of team sports, or let's say you're training for the marathon and you're competing against your personal best. There still is like a physicality with Mars. And in the fifth house, this can be something that is a hobby of yours that you like to do as your downtime, in your downtime. So the fifth house is also the house of love, but Mars has that physicality as well. And so that can be lust, that can be physical passion. And fifth house is recreational sex. So it's sex for pleasure, not for procreation. Although that's not true. It is for procreation because this is the house of conceiving children. So you may be actively trying to conceive or to sperminate somebody. I don't know where that came from. What else? The fifth house is the house of creativity. So hence the, making children, but also artistic pursuits. So this may be you really, I was going to say hunkering down, but it's just like getting revved up is a better way of putting it. So against that backdrop of just like really seeking out pleasurable experiences, we have the Sun and Mercury in Leo, and for you, this is the fourth house of home and family. So for some Taurians who have been wanting to move, this may be the time when you make your move, when you start to research, when you talk to some real estate agents, or if you're renting, you're going around looking for new digs. On the 8th, during the Lionsgate portal, on the day of the Lionsgate portal, August 8th, we have a new moon at 16 degrees of Leo. That might be the time when something is initiated in terms of house hunting or getting a property. And certainly if you are looking for a new residence, do some meditation at this time or anything that can put you in a good vibe for receiving your dream property. On the 11th, Mercury goes into Virgo, and this is the fifth house, joining Mars there. And is there something else? And Venus. So that's another thing. Not only is Mars in that fifth house, but Venus is there. And so is, and then Mercury goes in there on the 11th. And so this can be a full-blown romance, actually. Mercury is having these long talks with someone. If you're not in the, if you're not somebody who's in the market for a lover, then the fifth house, Mercury, can be literary in nature if you are a writer. And again, Mars is driving you to produce. So this can be a very prolific period, and maybe you can break through any writer's blocks. I actually have Taurus rising, so I'm saying this with an eye to myself because I'm also a writer. So it should be a good month for writers. Mercury here can also be about if you're starting your own business, or even if you already have one, that you're injecting something that has to do with communication into it. So maybe you're launching. This is a good time to launch in August into the first week of September. On the 16th, Venus goes into Libra, and Libra is the 6th house, and so this becomes more of a practical area. If you are working in an office, your office could get a makeover, or you could, move someplace where it's a lot more harmonious. If you've been having any kind of clashing with your coworkers. Venus in the 6th house can mean money, more money. Maybe you're getting a raise and that sort of thing. It can also be finding love in the workplace. On the 19th, Uranus goes retrograde at 14 degrees of Taurus. So Uranus retrograding in your own sign, Taurus. What can that mean? Since Uranus has been in your sign for the last couple of years, you have been yearning for more freedom and more individuality in your self-expression and just about every area of life. You may feel like you're confined in some way, and this will be especially apparent to people who are within the first, I would say, 10 degrees. Like the retrograde is happening at 14 degrees. So yeah, maybe half of the first half of Taurus. But I'm talking about starting at the beginning. It would have been like the first 10 degrees that would have felt this. So maybe some of you earlier Taurians have really been like this, and the later ones will, catch up at a later date. But when Uranus goes retrograde, it's going to be an internalized thing where it's going to be more within your attitudes than your outward actions. And you're going, whether it's you questioning yourself or it's simply, thinking about life in those terms, about, what does it mean to be an individual? And what does it mean to be an original rather than somebody who imitates others? And this may come about because of other events in your life that prompt your self-inquiry. But this is very important. So these retrogrades can really take these themes and bring it back to yourself in terms of your attitudes. Because simply doing things in a very, I don't know, like when I think about these transits sometimes, I think about this idea of being controlled by an outer force. And I just don't believe that that's true. I believe that it's happening in tandem with our own self-direction. And especially if you've been feeling very like pent up, you may ask yourself, why is it? Like, let's say it has to do with a marriage or something along those lines. And an example would be you married young and you're getting to the stage where you feel like you haven't experienced more people and that you've been kind of stuck with one person. Well, if you have been feeling like that, it really is something to look into within yourself because later this year you're going to have a lunar eclipse in Taurus in this same house, and that's going to form an opposition with the seventh house of committed partnership. And then in 2022, there's going to be eclipses in Scorpio as well as Taurus. So these areas are going to get hit in the next year and a half. And you want to be, because the marriage house can get hit for you, and if you're in a committed relationship with which a lot of Taurians probably will be, because that's just how you roll. Like the other sign ruled by Venus, Libra, you tend to be involved in romantic partnerships. It's just how you like to live your life rather than being single. But sometimes being single can be very expansive for you, even if it's outside of your comfort zone. And with this Uranus transit and the eclipses, the steady drumbeat may be making this blatantly obvious to you at some point. So use this time until December, when Uranus goes direct, to explore this idea within yourself. Like, if you have been feeling, I'll be so much happier if I'm free of this marriage, this committed relationship, really take yourself into that reality of living alone, and not to glamorize it, to see it for what it is. Maybe there's a difficult situation that is going to pass. Like if you've just had children and you feel like the sense of not being free because of that, that can lead to disenchantment with your partner. But that's situational and that's temporary. So making sure that you really give it a lot of thought, and looking at this, because there can sometimes be this feeling like I have to do something, and it can be something that you're doing very erratically because you feel this need for liberation. On the 22nd, there is a full moon at 29 degrees of Aquarius, and this is the 10th house of career, and it's at the critical 29th degree, the last degree of the sign. So this could be some kind of attainment of a goal that has a career vibe to it. So look out for that, for some kind of pinnacle in your career. And on the same day, the sun goes into Virgo. So then it's almost like you can, like it's party time, because you've done the work and now you get to have a month of the sun in this house of pleasure. And not to say you're just going to party for a month, but you may just be in this mode of like, okay, now I've, got the cherry on top of the cake, and I can go and I can let my hair down a little bit. And if anyone knows how to have a good time, it's a Taurus person. You don't have to be the center of attention, unless your rising sign or your moon sign is in Leo, maybe. You don't have to do wild things, but you're front and center whenever it comes to enjoyment of the pleasures of life. And this is the house of pleasure, so you've earned it, Taurus. On the 30th, we have Mercury going into Libra. And so this is going to, we already have Venus in this area, and it's going to put your mind on more practical matters. The sixth house is also health, and so diet may be something front and center in terms of the books that you're reading, the Mercury rules the sixth house, actually. And so you may be, deciding what kind of eating style works best for you by doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of, this can even involve the way that you manage your time. Mercury can give you that you're putting a lot of thought into it for some reason. Now, one thing I didn't mention is that the fifth house can also be about the business that you own. So if you do own a business, or if you are launching, which is a great time until the first week in September, you may be, trying to create a schedule for yourself because of that, because maybe you've had a past where you are more regimented because of working outside of the home, and now you have to do that for yourself, and it's like a whole new ball game, if you will. So anyway, this sounds like a great month for you, Taurus. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.